to the Fit Dads podcast. My name is Ryan Dutton. I'm joined by Brad Thompson, and in today's episode, we're going to talk you through how to reignite your fitness flame. Maybe that flame might have been out for a while. It might have gone a little bit the embers might be a bit low, shall we say. You might have been off the boil. You might have gone down a path with your health and fitness that maybe isn't optimal for you, whether it's been kids, whether it's been work, whether it's just been a lack of motivation for a while. These things happen. It's part of life. We do regress at times. We're here to give you some examples on how we think might be best to approach moving forwards from the spot that you're in. We're going to give you some examples of clients we've had in a similar position who've maybe been a little bit stuck in there, stuck in a rut, shall we say, with their health, fitness, and getting them out of those situations and how we've done that. So that's the kind of aim of today's podcast. But Brad, what do you think is the first initial steps, would you say, when we do a process with clients of getting them out of that kind of funk?
It's probably helping them understand that if they were fit and healthy before, or they were at a certain level, they might have to taper their expectations initially. And that can be quite hard for people if they've been quite fit and active, maybe like uni or in their early 20s, and then they go and have kids or something like that, and they try and pick up where they left off. That's tough. That is really, really tough. So you have to sort of help them understand it mentally first. Secondly, it's probably understanding that the body is maybe deconditioned. So we have to think, if you just pick up where you left off, the risk of injury is just sky high.
Yeah.
So we have to be super aware of that. So one psychological thing to consider and one physical thing to consider.
Avoiding injury, I would say. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's so important for someone who's been at a good standard before, maybe played sport as a kid and been exposed to a lot of activity in their week. It's amazing how the body does regress over time, and over time, obviously, as you get older, the years roll by, joints, ligaments, muscles all become a little bit less efficient at recovering, they become a little bit slower, and these things are massive for inducing injuries. So avoiding the risk of injury with those types of clients for us is such a big important factor.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you said fitness flame, because kids can do that to you sometimes. Where you have them and then all of a sudden your fitness pursuits or what you wanted to do is now not as important as what it used to be. And rightfully so. That flame could just be still, like you said, embers, but it's hard to reignite if you don't know how.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that it happens, like I said, it's life, things take over. Work sometimes can get very demanding. Kids and family, like having a kid in those first 6 months is bar gone impossible to actually manage around health, exercise, tracking your food, if for whatever reason you've not really prioritised those things to a certain degree in the past. And one thing I will say is I don't feel bad for regression. Like it is part of life. Regression happens, and it's not what's happened in the past, it's how you deal with it going forward. So that's something that I really want to reiterate.
Yeah, there's a phrase I come across a couple of months ago, which is life comes in seasons. And if you have to think, there's a big thing on social media now saying like, I'm in my, parenting era, or I'm in my holiday era, or whatever era you're going to be in. I think when you accept that actually what's the most important thing in my life right now, early 20s, depending on if you've got kids or not, or where your life's taking you, you're in a different era.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? You're in, let me get as many experiences as I can.
The best era, let's be honest. Let's not beat around the bush.
There is that.
The era that we want to last forever, but at some point you've got to grow up, haven't you? Yeah, unfortunately.
Then it is that where, there's people who, I think they call them like Peter Pan, Peter Pan men, which is basically like people who just, they never grow up.
Never settle down.
No, which is fair if that's how you choose to spend your life. For sure. But, kids in particular, they give you quite a lot of purpose. So everything that you do, you have to accept that. I know it's that mindset shift, like we said. Yeah. It's understanding that life does come in seasons, and maybe you smashing your 10k PB isn't the most important thing right now. Maybe it's making sure you can provide for your family, or that your kids aren't getting in trouble at school, or So you have to be super aware where you spend your attention.
I agree. I think it's a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I see a lot of young coaches talking about how we've all got the same 24 hours in a day. But if you're a parent, you have not got the same 24 hours as someone who has not got kids. Like, it's just a completely different 24 hours, and the things you have to factor into your day and the way schedules change and plans have to be rearranged, and that can, again, you go through a week, a month, a few months, before you know it, it's a year, and you're like,
Yeah.
damn it, those sessions that I was doing every week are now suddenly out the window.
Yeah.
And you have not got the same 24 hours. And sometimes people manage to kind of fit exercise and health and that kind of priority into their kind of week quite early on when they have kids, and they seem to make it stick, and others don't, unfortunately. So whichever camp you lie in, work on the things that you need to improve on. So if you are someone who's made it stick, okay, how are you going to continue to make that stick? How are you going to have plans in place to kind of, ensure that never changes? If you're someone who has regressed and kids for whatever reason has meant that you haven't been able to continue with your exercise and eating well, old habits have crept in, right, how are we going to reverse this around? And that's kind of what this podcast is about. It's about the latter. You've regressed, the fitness flames died, the burning embers are still there. Maybe there's that inkling in your mind, I need to kind of get a bit of kind of air blown on this flame.
Yep.
And how are we going to do that, basically?
And today we're going to do very similar to what we did for the Reclaiming Your Health episode, where we're going to share some case studies and that sort of stuff about, just to sort of highlight that maybe what got the person to a high level of fitness before maybe won't get them to where they want to be. They might have been spending 6 days in the gym, an hour and a half sessions, all the luxuries, of maybe not having a home gym or having that, that time available to doing one session a week if they're lucky,
Changing the expectations now, for sure.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to start by saying is, if you're in this camp of someone who's trying to reignite the fitness flame, obviously you were in a good place with your health and fitness before, you were in a good place with your physique before, and you were happy to a certain degree with how things were being operated on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. If you're serious about getting back to that point, if not even further, I think we can learn a lot sometimes from those mistakes as well, and why we went wrong last time. We are all creatures of habit. We have built-in comfort blankets, i.e. ways of living that might not make us feel great might make us feel great in the moment, but aren't great for us long term. Knowing where the issues lie and having plans in place for this when they crop up again is exactly how you will crack this for good. And yes, obviously to the Fit Dads podcast, we deal generally with a lot of parents and things like that. So if it's the kids issue, if it's managing that and having different expectations for what you need to achieve in your week, great, we'll cover that. But also, we have a lot of busy professionals and just people who, for whatever reason, just fall out of funk with the training. Why did that happen? Is it because your training program got a bit stagnant and you weren't enjoying it anymore? Is it because I don't know, maybe your social life took off a little bit and you weren't able to kind of have that as a part of your program as well, and you weren't able to kind of manage the two plates there? Maybe it is, like I said, kids. That's something we're going to obviously cover, and I think in our case studies, especially mine, I've got a client who had kids, and will definitely give you some insights into how to get around that for sure.
Should we dive into them now in terms of case studies? Because I do think a lot can be learned from yours in particular, who we both know really well. I just think that story is really inspiring, and I don't know, it's what you're impressed by as well. Like, one thing I've noted down here is I try and use like a chessboard analogy, where if every piece on a chessboard is a queen, it's a pretty boring game. You can just do whatever you want, whereas all of a sudden you're at this stage where you've got to adapt a little bit more. You've got different pieces on that board now, and you have to get creative with these solutions. You have to really think, oh, okay. And it gets exciting because you think, well, I've got this limitation. Or they say limitations breed creativity. And I think we've both got case studies today that can shed some light on that.
I like that analogy, and it's almost like a never-ending chess game where the pieces are moving, and you can't have a set routine. Like I do coach, obviously, some people who are in the kind of early 20s, and one of the first things I get them to do is just write down your schedule, and let's have it as a dead set every single week. And those people do tend to stick to it pretty well because it's very rigid. Kids, for example, like I said, there's moving chess pieces that can do all different types of things. For whatever reason, you've got your session planned, and then I don't know, someone breaks their arm, for example. Kids, now you may need 4 hours. You can't factor those things into a program, but you can have backups. And something that I will mention before I go into this case study is also having the other half on side with stuff like this is really important. Like if you are someone who's had kids now and is going to this next phase of you wanting to reignite that flame, you need to sit down with your partner and have like a bit of a conversation about how we're going to make this work. If it's only for me and I'm the only one who wants to get in shape, okay, we need to factor that in, because there's going to be some changes. There's going to be some demands on me and on demands on you to make sure that this is part of my week now. Generally, what I tend to find works in those situations is if you almost encourage your partner to kind of get into it as well, be on this journey together. Which I guess leads me great into my next case study, which is Dan. So Dan is someone we had on the podcast before. We know Dan Smith. You may have even seen his episode. You may have seen his transformation online. We actually posted it, I think, on the episode as well on YouTube. So Dan actually came to R5 twice. He's now still here on his second time of revisiting us. The first time he had a 16-week program to get him in shape for his wedding. Unfortunately, this didn't last long, however. Over the next few years, Dan actually put on a considerable amount of weight, pretty much going back, I would say, probably to where he was at square one when he first came, the first time he was here. He had kids in the meantime. He actually neglected his own health and fitness and sacrificed a lot of that for his kids to be, what he thought was, I guess, being the best dad, giving them the time they needed. But it ended up leaving him in a bit of a funk, really. He, won't mind me mentioning this. I think he mentioned it quite a bit on the podcast, but he has some issues with his mental health, and they were all really stemmed from the fact that he just wasn't feeling like he was living life to the max. He wasn't feeling like he was being the best version of himself, and that definitely meant that his, mental health just took a little bit of a dip, basically. He did also confess that during his first program, it was kind of for other people in a way. He knew there was an expectation to get in shape for the wedding, and he obviously wanted to look good on the photos, but there was maybe a little bit of pressure from the missus and things like that. It wasn't driven solely by him. The second time around, however, it was solely about him. Today is actually a significant day for Dan because it's actually his 40th birthday, so I'm not sure if you're listening, Dan, but happy birthday. With this episode obviously won't go out today, but it's a significant day for Dan and his program because he had this in his mind on his second visit to R5 as being the day when he wanted to enter into his 40s, because he came when he was, I think, 13, just turned 38, and he said, look, I really want to go into my 40s the best version of myself, the fittest, the strongest. I was fit when I was a kid. I used to play loads of rugby. I want to get back to that point in life where I feel like I'm not burdened by my body. I'm not burdened by my health, which he was feeling at the time. So, and it was about for him crossing this decade into the best physical shape he could be. So the program started very slow. We built Dan up obviously very gently over a long period of time. He actually expressed to me in the first few weeks how much he despised running. So running definitely wasn't an aspect of his program to start with, and we actively avoided it, I would say. Which is a stark contrast to where it is right now, as Dan recently went on a 30k run in the hills of around Edale, actually, in the Peak District with myself. It was one of the toughest challenges we've done together. We've done quite a few of these little runs now, and he is now I'm not sure if he openly admits he likes running. I think he's still quite scared to admit that to me, but to do 30k in the peaks at 1,300 metres of elevation gain is pretty wild and gnarly, and but he's got that in the tank now, and he's got a physique that means he can do things like sign up to High Rocks in 3 months' time. It's funny because whenever I see his missus Alex, she always goes, "What have you done with my husband?" Because he's not only unrecognisable from a physical point of view, but also how he conducts himself day to day, week to week. It's everything about his lifestyle and the way he lives has changed. Performing and looking at his very best is now one of the biggest priorities in Dan's life. He takes it seriously, wants to push the limits, wants to know how far he can go, and he also enjoys life, though. He's not like the kind of guy who is militant with it. He has been on countless holidays during his time here, his second time here. He's had cheat meals we've factored in, and he's been telling me all week what he's going to be doing for his 40th in terms of his celebrations, what meals he's having out. He is planning a lot of these things as well, but he's also having a little bit of time off this week just to kind of scale back and enjoy himself. He's absolutely deserved it. He's had a phenomenal kind of 18 months while he's been here at R5 so far. And he is kind of obsessed with being at his best while still living a little. And I love that approach. He's actually a great example, and he's the reason why I've used him on this podcast, because he wants to be at his best for him and also for his family. So that's Dan, and that's someone I think that's, you know, taken it all the way and reignited that fitness flame.
He's a legend, and he's such a nice bloke as well. He's not a robot. He's got a really good mindset to him. I'm now part of the exclusive club that Dan sends inspirational memes to, and I feel very honoured to be a part of that, because he's an inspiring guy, and you look at him and you think you've done an incredible, not just from, I suppose, where he's been and then where he is now, but just like what he continues to want to be. It's not like he's settling. It's not like he's going, oh, I'm 40 now.
Yeah.
He said he wants to enter his 40s feeling amazing. I'm pretty sure he'll move them goalposts and he'll say, right, when I'm 45, he's that sort of bloke. He's gonna keep shifting them.
I think the 40 thing was a big driver for him, and you know, it has crossed my mind that as to kind of where he'll go. Now he has turned 40. Now he's performing at the best. He literally, I mean, we had this conversation on our 30k run. You know, it took us about 4.5 hours in the peaks, and we had a lot of conversations about, you know, where he wanted to be in the kind of coming weeks and months. And it's all about changing the goalpost. And this is something I really want to highlight with reaching goals and settling. It's so important that you find new things to do. It could be something as big as entering a decade in the best shape of your life. It can be something as small as signing up to a 5k run. I've got that coming up in a few weeks' time. That's something I'm going to just knuckle down for, try and get my best time. It's about having these small, actionable goals. And you guys, if you're looking to reignite your fitness flame and it's been there before, there's a reason it died. There's a reason it went out the window. There's a reason you haven't prioritised it, and you've got to the place where you are now where you're having to reignite it. Most of the time it's because you weren't enthused by what you were doing and there was no clear goal that you were aiming towards. And then I can't stress enough that goal setting to reignite that flame.
We're going to keep coming back to that word flame, because, I mean, what happens if you don't tend to a flame? It goes out, or it dies a little bit, and then getting it started again is tough. But then when that fire's roaring, and you've said it before, like the goal setting, actually setting a date or setting a target, it's amazing what happens, because you can actually reverse engineer it. You're motivated, you're driven, you've got a deadline. And people who typically have had success in the past, and they probably had success in the past because they pushed themselves and they had goals to aim for. So more specific, the better.
I'm going to tell you a weird story about a YouTube video I was watching the other day.
I'm worried.
Could go anywhere this. Yeah. Very obscure. I'm not sure how I came across it on YouTube, but it was just a guy juggling, basically, and he had like millions of subscribers, and he was obviously a very well-known juggling coach. Yeah. And I don't know why. I think I was doing like an analogy on juggling, so I wanted to kind of look at like how people juggle. I think it's for one of my reels on Instagram. Anyway, I came across this guy, and he was juggling 8 balls at once. And I'm going, how do you even? And he had, it was 7 balls. So 3 in one hand and 4 in the other. I was thinking, how is that even possible? How do you juggle 7? So I started watching the video, and it was fascinating as to how he did it and the kind of techniques and tricks he would use. And then right at the end of the video, he said something that really stuck with me and was quite poignant. He said, this is a skill that takes a long time to build up. You don't just learn to juggle 7 balls overnight. It happens over a long period of time. You start with 3, 4, 5, 6, you build up to 7. But 7 is like one of the ultimate kind of goals for any juggler. I think it's quite a bit of a magic number. But he goes, once you get here, use it or lose it. If you don't keep practicing this, you will lose the ability to juggle 7 balls. It takes time and patience every single week. The dedication to the craft has to continue once you get here. You don't just juggle 7 balls and, oh, that's it. It's like riding a bike. I can juggle 7 balls forever. You have to keep coming back to it. You have to keep practicing it. And I thought that was a great way of ending the video on his part, because it just reinforced that, yes, I've taught you how to do this, but you can't just do it and do it forever. It's a continuous cycle of coming back to it. And it's so poignant for what we're trying to kind of express and get across today. Keep training, keep goal setting, keep trying to be the best you can be. Use it, or unfortunately, you'll lose it.
To add to that analogy, I learned how to juggle in lockdown.
Did you?
Yeah. My father-in-law is really good. He can do like clubs and flames, apparently, which I've not seen him do yet, but apparently he can do it.
Okay.
So when I was learning how to
Probably not around your house.
We'll see. A few beers in, sure, be all right. Which, in terms of Yeah, like learning to juggle 3, that's like the baseline. You know, if you can learn how to juggle 3, that skill sort of stays with you, if that makes sense. That's like the minimum.
Okay.
That's
you riding the bike.
Yeah, learning to do 4 is a different ball game. So when you said 7, I'm like, geez, that's mad. But yeah, him sort of saying, I can do 4, I'm like, go on then. And because he's not been practicing it, it took him a while to get into it again. Okay. So it really cast my mind back into lockdown then.
Use it or lose it, yeah.
Yeah, use it or lose it, yeah.
And it was so true on this video. And I mean, I'm not... I looked at the one at 3 balls and thought, that looks too hard for me. I'm sacking that. I'm sticking to weights.
We'll teach you.
Weights and running.
We'll teach you. That'll be a good YouTube video. But
do you want to move on to your case study then? So the person you've dealt with who's kind of been quite poignant for this kind of podcast.
Similar to the Reclaiming Your Health episode, I didn't ask for permission. So this is a client H. All right. Yeah. She'll know who she is, but she works in a very male-dominated environment. Previously very fit, trained a lot. Admittedly, though, almost to a fault. You know, they trained a lot, they restricted a lot in terms of the nutrition and the calories. Had 2 boys who keep her very, very busy. And she's the breadwinner in her house. She's very high stress. She's got a really important high up job. But she probably noticed that like the flame dampen a little bit in terms of fitness. She was going through the motions. She wanted a different way of training. And I'd probably say that reignition came from altering the goals a little bit and making her why a little bit bigger. It wasn't down to I want to be this size dress anymore. It became I want to be able to do this with my sons, because her sons are very active. They're very busy kids, and you know, this is someone who's got an incredible amount of skill, very coachable. I don't know if you found this in the past, but people who come to you who have had a previous level of experience before, they seem to be very coachable. Like you can say things to them and they go, "Yep, got it." Yeah, and they seem to just little cues. So it really helps me tailor my approach, because I can't just go what I call blanket cues, saying like, "Cool, yes, keep weight through your heels." I have to really go internal with the cues and think. Imagine that you're gripping the floor and you're like a bit more advanced. And client H is someone who does that 100%. But even little things like if you are someone who's postpartum, if you've had a child, you are still classed as postpartum, no matter how long ago it's been, which is, you know, worth considering. So you still have to go through
My mum's 30 years postpartum.
Still postpartum. yeah, still postpartum. And you have to think like, okay, there might be pelvic floor issues there. So you go through all those checks. And, you know, this client in particular, I mentioned works in a male-dominated society, male-dominated industry, should I say, for a reason. Because this person has to almost shift their mindset a little bit and learn how to not only mix it with the men, but be able to bring that feminine touch and set an example for her boys to sort of say, okay, this is, you might meet women like me who aren't, you know, maybe stay-at-home mums, who are a bit more career-driven, and that's fine, that's fantastic. But this client in particular, very, very good muscle memory, very high skill, and someone who I'm very, very proud of, because they continue to keep surprising me. They keep pushing boundaries, and there's something known as relative strength. And this is something that I try and get across with people who have trained in the past, have fallen out with it, and then pick up again. Typically, if they can get their level of relative strength up, it's going to be amazing. So this person in particular, let's say they weigh 60 kilos, all right? If they're deadlifting 120 kilos, that's some elite level stuff that you're seeing right there. It's like 2 times the body weight deadlift. They're doing incredible things. If someone who weighs 120 kilo can deadlift 120 kilo, we've covered this in the past, arguably less impressive, because relatively speaking, it's like 1 times the body weight. So as far as success goes, the behaviors that we've managed to instill, stress management, that's been the number one. Really high pressure, high demands on a time or energy, finances as well. So making sure that the stress is under control, got time for herself, got time to come in and work hard to build up that resilience almost. That's something that we really worked on.
Brilliant.
Nutrition, obviously high stress, might mean stress eating. It might mean the urge to restrict and go back to what got her results in the past.
Yep.
We couldn't do that. You know, 6 days a week training, off the table, 1,200 calories a day, not really feasible anymore with the amount of stress and like just how much they have to perform to the best. So that's something that we really tried to double down on as a pairing, to make sure that the sessions were super effective. So the programming is very much like 3 days of full body. Amazing. whereas before it were high intense class, it were shoulder day, leg day, just all sorts going off. So to teach someone a different way to be more efficient when your life circumstances changed, I'm really, really proud of Client H for that.
Yeah, I think, again, great example of someone who, comes in and really wants to be the best version of herself. Again, someone similar to Dan who, quite a unique circumstance as well, in that she's surrounded by men, essentially, from her 2 little boys to, her work environment. Very, I wonder whether that has an effect potentially on, her wanting to be more physical. I can only imagine it will do. No woman wants to be seen in a male-dominated workplace as the weak woman. She wants to be strong, physical, and if not in the way she conducts herself, but in it's confidence in the way you talk. When you can perform well, it's amazing how the words that come out of your mouth have more conviction. They just do. When you are confident in your body, everything in your persona is enhanced. There was something I was going to come back to there, but I've forgotten.
Which one thing I forgot to mention as well is she will constantly be trying to improve her family's life as well, and making suggestions and leading from the front, to the point where her and her other half have invested in a home gym as well. So seeing how that dynamic interacts, with her sons as well, they'll say Daddy, Mummy can pick this up.
Brilliant.
Can you do that?
I love that.
And it's there's always that constant challenge, and just, I don't know, seeing how the kids respond to that and the questions that they ask, because they see her work hard. And I love the questions that she says, such and such, my eldest asked me this the other day, and my youngest asked me this about lifting, and it's normal for them. It's normal for them to see their mum lifting a big weight, or to see their mum putting herself through the mill to make herself better. Yeah, to see them struggle.
Great role model. Really good role model. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Still haven't thought what I was going to say. It was something about. I had a really good point, and it's just gone. Maybe it's that 30k run from the weekend. My mind's dying on me now.
Maybe. But no, I suppose an honourable mention as well for someone who is the breadwinner in the house. You want to be your best, essentially, to your best physically, your best mentally, and we all know if you're at your best physically, normally the mental performance follows as well.
But it's also very easy as the breadwinner sometimes to fall into the opposite kind of mindset, where you're well, I'm earning all the money, I'm doing all the work, I'm I need more time, I need more rest. I'm not going to waste my time going to the gym. I need to chill. Whereas that's, again, just a vicious cycle of thinking. You need to. You will get more out of life, and you will feel better in yourself if you have those moments in the gym or training, whatever that might be, that are just you by yourself. It's a nice break from. Even Dan says to me, all the parents I coach said the sessions they do at the gym are a nice break from kids, family, reality. It's just one moment in the day where they can go and just escape for a second. And I want you as a parent, if you are a parent, to have that same approach, to view the gym as something that not only gives you a bit of a mental break from the family setup, which is really important, by the way, but also it is for you. It's to better you. It's to kind of drive you forwards and make you feel confident, fit, healthy, to, as we said, reignite that fitness flame.
My wife Amy says this to me a lot when she goes to the gym. Granted, she knows a lot of people there, but she's like, I go to the gym and I'm not just Brad's wife, I'm not just Teddy's mum. I'm Amy coming here for myself. That's her time. And whether she wants to put her headphones on or whether she wants to have a natter in the gym, she's just who she is.
Awesome.
And I love that approach.
Yeah, brilliant. Is there anything else you wanted to add to the Fitness Flame episode? The Reigniting Your Fitness Flame episode?
I'd probably say just the constant comparison between fire and we do it a lot. We make analogies. We make links to something that mainly so it sticks with people. Everyone can imagine a flame.
Easy to understand as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Mate, there'll be people who throw water on their flame by choice. Because they go, I can't be arsed. But if someone's listening to this now and you're not that person, there's still a chance. If you've got that desire, if you're listening to this with the hope that you are going to get some inspiration and get some actionable tips and tricks, I'm thinking that that person would,
I think the main point there is it's not too late. It's never too late. It doesn't matter how far down the wrong path you go, no matter how irreversible you think the damage you might have done to yourself is. It's never irreversible, never completely. Don't ever kind of go down that way of thinking. I've had people who've come to me and said exactly that. Like, I feel like what I've done has been so damaging. Like they might have come to me and said, when I was in my teenage years, I was playing on rugby teams, I was fit, I was swimming. In my 20s, I was going to the gym, and then late 20s, let's say I had a breakup, or I had a change in circumstance, and I just lost motivation, and now I've really abused my body. I might have been, binge eating a little bit, I might have been smoking, I may have been just going out a lot, drinking, I might have been overeating. So many factors have led them down this path where they just convince themselves that the damage that I've done is never going to get me back to where I was when I was in my early 20s and teens. Now, your body changes as you go as you get older. We've mentioned that, and avoiding risk of injury and all those factors is a big part of it. But you can get back to a level of fitness that you probably didn't even think was imaginable. And Dan, my case study, is a fantastic kind of example of that. He now openly admits, even though he played rugby as a kid, he wasn't as fit as he is now. He couldn't have done. He might have been fit enough to run around a rugby pitch, but there's a lot of stopping and starting. There's no way he could have done a 30k run out in the Peak District. So he's entered his 40s in the best position he's ever been in life. And that's the same. If he'd come to me at 48 and said, I want to enter my 50s in the best, we would have done exactly the same thing. You are presented as a coach with whatever you've got in front of you, and you work around that. And if you're wanting to go it alone and get that fitness flame reignited, then it's never too late. It really isn't.
I think it's encouraging people for that progressive overload as well. Like, please don't pick up where you left off. Be very, very careful. You might wake up one day with this fire in your belly that sort of drives you forward, and that can, as exciting as that is, that can also be a bit of a detriment. On the other hand, one thing I wanted to mention about that ember that people just might have flickering away, it might even manifest as a bit of maybe shame, bit of guilt, like, I've let, why are you thinking that in the first place? It could also manifest as a bit of jealousy. You could see somebody else who used to be in a position and now they've had kids, or their life circumstances change, and it's not phased them, and they've just but it's affected you, and you've let yourself go a little bit. And I think it's important to understand how that ember could look for you.
So it's a really good point, that the green eyes thing, where you just see other people with, whether it's a similar circumstance to you, where they've got the kids and the hectic job, and they're somehow managing to make it work, and you're like, I just don't know, there must be, and you make up these stories, or must be a terrible mother or dad, must never see the parents, so that they're their own kids. There must be something not quite right there. But truth is, they've just found a routine that really works, and you can be exactly that same person. I've had it before where clients have come and their circumstances have changed, whether that's kids, something else, and they're now envying the people who haven't got kids, and they're like, oh, I'm so jealous of them, they've not got my circumstance, and why has this happened to me? And you can get a little bit in that mindset, and sometimes you might even wish you didn't have the kids, so you could just focus on you a little bit, and that's again just this weird guilt thing that goes through your mind. Why am I having these thoughts? But whatever your circumstances, the overriding message is you can make it work. There's a routine, there's a way of living, there's a structure that works for you. And I've had some people come to me and they've literally got the busiest, craziest lives you can imagine. Like, there's so much going on. All they can spare is 15 minutes. 15 minutes 2 or 3 times a week. Right, if that's our starting point, beautiful. That's what we go for. And we make that work, and we make those 15 minutes the most productive 15 minutes in their week. We're hoping over time, as this becomes a bit more of a priority and we start to rejig their life around their own health and fitness, we can eke some more time out of them. But your circumstances will dictate exactly what kind of you can commit to.
Well said. Well said. You mentioned about getting your family on side, getting maybe your other half, your partner on side.
So important.
Have them chats. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to add to the episode?
For some reason, I've just thought of a Drake quote all about jealousy. So Drake,
we're going left field there.
I never expected to quote Drake on this podcast, but he basically said, jealousy is love and hate at the same time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. God, that is quite deep. Is that Drake quote?
That's Drake, yeah.
Wow. Love and hate at the same time.
Fair play to you, Drake.
What song is that? I have to go listen to that.
I'm going to have to find it. I will find it.
Love and hate at the same time. Yeah, it is, because you you only get jealous for one reason, basically. You want to be like that person, really.
Yeah.
And that manifests sometimes in a bit of anger.
Yeah.
But the anger is because you love where they are. Yeah.
Which, if anyone feels that way, I honestly say try and verbalise it where you can. Because it's Joe Rogan who says it's a pointless emotion.
Yeah.
Like, what jealousy doesn't help anybody.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't hurt the person.
No.
It just hurts you. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
it does. It's literally just you that gets affected by that.
Yeah,
for sure. But it's so hard in the moment to not feel that way, for sure.
100%.
Are we really ending it with a Drake quote?
I think so, mate. I think so. Unless you want to jump in.
No, that's as good as I can find. I send it. What was the quote? Finish with it.
I might actually add him into the comments for this. Just Drake, if you can retweet this or whatever, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, amazing. It'll help the podcast out for sure.
Jealousy is love and hate at the same time.
Jealousy is love and hate at the same time. Thank you, Drake. And guys, thank you for joining us on the Fit Dads podcast. If you enjoy the episodes, please subscribe. We are really keen to kind of grow our viewership. And if you are really enjoying these episodes and you think someone else might benefit from them, please #forward the Fit Dads.
Thank you.
See you in the next one.
See you soon.